some of the stuff that you've worked on is incredible. Like it's phenomenal. Can you share a little bit about some of the kind of more recent production work you've done? Because there's some pretty extraordinary things.
I worked on Billions, this I think it's season 5 now, and we were looking for this Axe's mansion, and we had gone through about 350 different mansions to try and replicate that scale. And we were looking for a wood panelled space. At the end of the day, the scene that we were trying to do was a Zoom call. So it absolutely killed us when we found the location just for a freaking Zoom call.
Tell me about the experience of actually going through your burnout.
It goes through stages, I would say. Like my work, I realized I was becoming so emotionally attached to my work that if there was an error in something, I'd beat myself up about it. And then from there, I would just go, no, it's fine. I'll get up really early, or I'll go here, or it was like I was like an endless machine. But I could tell that I was burning out.
Yeah. You forget about taking care of yourself, really.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Mm.
Everyone goes, take care of yourself, and you're like, yeah. But you take it for granted.
Just doesn't mean anything to
No,
us.
no, it's like I'm fine. Nothing's gonna happen to me. I'm fine. But my friends didn't have a clue what I was actually going through or what happened because I'd always kept it quiet. They always saw the successes, but they didn't see the down points.
Francesca, it is fantastic to have you here to be able to have this conversation. It's such an important one around, part of this series in creator burnout and what that looks like for so many people and some of the methodologies and the strategies that people have, who have been through burnout like yourself, and we're going to explore that story, have come back from. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, what you've got to share, because I know that there's some really important moments in there, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive straight in.
Well, the first thing that I want to explore is and share with people watching this is your story. What is it that got you into the freelance creator lifestyle?
That's a really good question. I would say I've had an unconventional path into it. I sort of fell into it. I kind of always knew I wanted to be an actor since the age of 5, and I went to this little theatre school near my house. And we did shows every 2 years, and it really got me out of my shell because I used to be this really shy, quiet child that would hide behind my mum. And my mum was like, "You just get into drama, like, come on, start chatting, da da da," because she's so like bubbly and outgoing as a hairdresser. And I was like, "Oh my God, mum." Anyway, so that I would say she helped me get
The
into
oh my
that.
god mum moment. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
honestly, but I am grateful to her because now I'm able to be outgoing and chatty with people, and I feel comfortable doing that. So, yeah, thanks, mum. Even though at the time I was like, mm. So anyway, I did that, and then I've always kind of involved the arts and drama in my life. But I always felt it wasn't until I kind of after I went to drama school, I then went to university and I studied drama and performance there, did I then find out that I really liked the producing side of stuff and getting involved in the behind the scenes of the creative industries because I realized that I'm super OCD and very like logistical and organized, and I was like, well, I've got to put this into good use. Um, So anyway, that happened, and I kind of decided, look, I'm moving back to London now because I used to go to uni on the coast, in Portsmouth, if anyone knows it in the UK. And I decided to kind of do internships and get involved in production for free for a bit so I could get experience. And then I just realized as I was doing it that I kind of went into the freelance world. And then, people are like, oh, don't forget to invoice and file your taxes and all of that. And I was like, what is all this? So I feel like it was always destined to me to be a freelancer because I don't really like doing the same thing over and over and over again. I like to have a bit of
That's really
flexibility with the
interesting
same. Yeah.
because it sounds like you've always had this destined path, and you've known that for a long time, like knowing
Mm.
that you want to be an actor since the age of 5. That's a pretty awesome thing to see that you've actually begun realizing that dream, and You've starred in things, you've been in productions, you've
Yeah.
worked behind the scenes on a lot of different things, and we'll jump into that in a minute.
Mhm.
In that destined path, that learning, that university degree, drama school, all those sorts of things, was there ever a moment where you stepped out of the creative and into the business side of it, and actually going, okay, well, if I'm destined for this freelance life or this acting life, is there anything outside of the creative aspect that I actually need to learn to understand?
Mm. Probably the financial side, the mathematical side of things. It's ironic because I produce and deal with budgets a lot. Thank God for Excel. That's all I'm saying. Um, but I would
I
say
don't
that.
think I've heard many people say that statement.
Well, there you go. You've heard it first from me. I freaking hate maths, but Excel has saved my life. So thanks, Excel. But anyway, so I would say the financial side of things and kind of understanding to keep a log of everything, keep a log of receipts and stuff, which isn't, the most creative stuff. But also going back to that, when I did move back to London, I knew I wanted to be an actor, but I wanted to understand the behind the scenes, most importantly, to make me a better actor and appreciate the crew on set when I did get those jobs. So I did step away, I guess you could say, from the creative, from acting for a few years actually, and dove straight into the production side, location management side of the industry. And I guess it could be creative to an extent, but it is very much sort of paperwork, organization based. And then I sort of realized as time went on that I like doing this, but I love acting more, and it pushed me to get into a show. I got cast in a show completely at the wrong time, you could say, when everything was happening. So I was like on this job, I was on these commercials, and then I get cast in this play, and I'm like, what? All in the same like time period. And I was like, typical life always. When you want it to happen, it doesn't. And then when you're like, can you just wait a second? It all
When you don't
comes.
want it to happen, it's just like, yes,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So yeah.
That's really cool because I'm sure that the delight and surprise must have been fantastic when you got cast for it.
Yeah.
What was it like going, hang on a minute, now I've got to balance both sides of, performance and actually doing the job
I
side of
mean,
things, the businessy side of things, whatever it was in the numbers end
yeah.
usually. How was
Yeah.
that balancing act for you?
I mean, it was incredibly difficult. I was traveling from one side of London to the other, and I for rehearsals and then for shows, but at the same time, I was on this massive job, and I really appreciated the time that I had on that job. But at the same time, I was in film industry. If people know about it, you can't just get time off. You're scheduled to like your 12-hour standard day, and that's it. And if you go into overtime, you go into overtime. But I was pulling like 16, 17, 18-hour days. And it was so intense. I wasn't really sleeping. I was just sort of like going on a hamster wheel. So I had to speak to one of my bosses that was on set and sort of explain the situation. And I was like, look, that I've always wanted to be an actor. I've got this opportunity. I want to do this, but I want to make it work, because I still, obviously want to help on the set and do the job that I'm supposed to do as well. So that was really tough, and also the driving and the long distance, and then taking that kind of work stress away and going into the creative, I found quite freeing, but also challenging because when you're in the crux of a film or a feature or a TV show, it's so high pressure that you go, oh my god, have I done this? Have I sent this? Have I said this? Have I emailed that? And then the creative side, whereas when the play came in, it allowed me to kind of loosen and be like, right, I just need to be in the space and just
Mm.
play, you know? And that was really nice. But yeah, it did come with its challenges. I mean, but then again, you've got to take every opportunity when it comes. So you got to make it work
Yeah,
somehow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I find that it's fascinating because there's a very ironic situation happening. Uh, it seems like as this is unfolding, because what I found as a creative is when you go and do the creative stuff, it's great. When you go and do the logical, boring stuff, sometimes some people like that, some people
Yeah.
don't. If you're purely creative, you're not necessarily thinking left brain, right brain.
Mm.
But when you are working in a creative industry and trying to run a business, trying to do the creative things, being in a play, being in performance, you've kind of got this ping pong match going on between left and right brain from a psychological perspective, because you're always switching. Okay, well, I've got to do this, so that's creative, so that's right brain, and then that's left brain, and now they've got to crisscross, and it's kind of like you're driving to and from each side of London
Yeah.
to
And each
to
side
kind
of
of
the brain.
crisscross. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, so you're just perfectly mirroring the situation in kind of the living out of that experience.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
about the actual process of being on the film set, because you
Mhm.
mentioned just before that you're working 12, 14, 16 hour days, and those are exhausting.
Yeah.
How was
Yeah.
that for you from a perspective of actually just constantly running and hustling and churning through your own energy and from a mental health perspective?
Super tiring. I mean, I'm so grateful to have had the opportunities I did, and had, but with that comes the cost of, I suppose, your energy that you have, because the film industry is not for the faint-hearted. If you love it, then you won't feel like you're working a day in your life. But you also don't have that social aspect. So you're with those people day in and day out, planning, preempting, organizing things for the days ahead, that you don't have time to break away and sort of be with your friends or go to the cinema or just do normal life stuff after, because I'll start I might have to, because I'm the location team, I might have to be on set at 4 a.m., but I can't leave until everyone else is gone. So that might be till, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 p.m. It depends on the wrap out and all of that kind of logistical stuff. So I think I would say, because I got stuck in a rut with going literally from job to job to job, I forgot about who I was at one point. I was like, well, I'm doing this, like I'm working really hard, I'm making great money, I'm meeting really good people, but I don't feel 100% fulfilled because I don't have that breakaway from the industry,
Mm,
because it is so much like a hamster wheel. And I guess
yeah.
it depends on who you work with as well. Some people you get on more with and some you don't. Some teams are great, some aren't. You get some tricky characters on there, but on set, but you sort of learn to move on and get on with it, because everyone's there as a collaborative effort to try and make the production work.
And what was the toll of that constant running on you?
Mm. Well, to be honest with you, I forgot to eat. I didn't really eat. Didn't really sleep. I was traveling all across the country, sleeping in different hotels because we were moving or overnighting with the shoots. So I would say it definitely affected me. I guess on the outside, you think, okay, great, like she's all put together. But I think internally, it really affected me because I didn't have a rest. I didn't have a break. I was constantly stressed. I had a boss who was really difficult and challenging, and I always felt like I needed to be better constantly and do more and more and more, to the point where I'd come home at 11 p.m., open my laptop and continue working, or I'd get a call from my boss going, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, even though I had done an endless amount of stuff that day for whatever day ahead. There was always more. It was like I always had to keep doing more. And then I became almost like addicted to
Mm,
my job. And sometimes that's a great thing. But I think
interesting.
for me, it
Yeah.
just lost
Sometimes
me.
it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. And it's incredibly, yeah, it can be
yeah.
really, really hard.
And with the kind of hardship of, the boss, there's kind of two aspects to this. There's one is the externally imposed effect of a boss putting pressure on and giving the late night calls and all that sort of thing. Then
Mm,
there's the other side of it, which is the internal pressures that we put on ourselves. And
yeah.
one of the best quotes in this is, nobody's more of a harsh critic than ourselves.
Yeah.
So for you, when you felt that external pressure being applied, how was that for you from an internal perspective going, well, I have to do this. Was there a point of needing to try and prove yourself, or was it something else?
I think I'm always striving to be the best at everything that I do. I want to produce really high quality work always. The film industry engaged that even more so.
Mhm.
I think I always, I guess, somewhat believed that I was good enough because I worked on amazing productions and I was constantly working, which is a great sign as a freelancer.
Mm.
Um, what was my point? I don't know what my point was. I completely forgot. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So the external versus internal drivers
Oh,
of you know what you felt and the pressure you kind of applied to yourself.
oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I always felt like I think I always knew that I was good and I was a high quality worker. But I always had that niggling doubt because my boss put so much pressure on me and always put me down. Um, and I always had to do better or do more or yeah, I almost felt like I wasn't appreciated, and all my family on the outside were like, "Francesca, you need to take a break. You need, like, what's happening to you? You
Mm.
need to take a break. You need to de-stress. This is not good for your health." Like I was getting really bad migraines. I was, again, not eating, losing weight. Like it was just like so extreme. And
Mm.
yeah, it took I wouldn't, I don't want to say it took a toll on me mentally, but it did affect me to the point where when there was issues with my boss and all the difficulties that came with that, I would just cry every day at the end of a shoot, because I would
Mm.
constantly get shouted at or told I wasn't doing good enough. I need to do more, more, more. And it's like, what more can someone do when they've done everything already?
Yeah. When they're
And
fully
so I
pushed to the breaking point, how much further can you
basically,
go?
and I
Mm.
realized I was like, I can't live like this where I'm crying every day. This is not good. This is not healthy.
Mm.
So I decided to make a change after about 2.5 years. I decided to take a bit of a step back from the
Mhm.
industry and dive back into acting. So it was kind of my turning point, really.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is so part of the purpose of this series and what I I really want to help freelancers and creators achieve as part of this is there are these stories like yours. I've been through so many different ones that are similar. I've heard it from so many other creators, which is what promoted this series to happen. Tell me about the experience of actually going through your burnout
Mm,
because I know that there's a light on the other side.
yeah. Um, it goes through stages, I would say. You have to recognize that what's happening to you isn't right and something needs to change. You need to acknowledge that. I went through the process. It first started with me. If I get really upset about something or I get quite emotionally attached to something, like my work, I realized I was becoming so emotionally attached to my work that if there was an error in something, I would beat myself up about it. So in doing that, I would then stop eating. And then from there, I would just go, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'll get up really early or I'll go here or, it was like I was like an endless machine. Like but I could tell that I was burning out. Then it went through the stage of upset, and then I was like, I looked at my life and I was like, what do I actually want? What do I want? What do I enjoy? And how can I feel better from this situation? And doing things, stepping away and doing things for you. Like I stopped going to the gym, but the gym I've noticed has really helped me mentally and physically step away from the stress. And some people go, "Oh, that's so
Mm.
overrated." Well, actually, it isn't. Physical exercise can really help you relieve the stress that you carry. So I found that by going back to the gym, that really helped me break away from that side of being so emotionally invested and stressed all the time. You almost forget about, the other stuff.
Yeah.
And then
You
sort of
you
talking
forget
to
about taking
people.
care of yourself, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone goes, take
Mm.
care of yourself, take care of yourself. And you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But you take it for granted.
Just doesn't mean anything to us.
No, I know. It's like, I'm fine. Nothing's gonna happen to me, I'm fine.
Mm,
But, and then I started to open up to people. Like, I was speaking to my parents and friends about what was going on, and they had my parents knew, but my friends didn't have a clue what I was actually going through or what happened because 'cause I'd always kept it quiet. They always saw the
mm,
successes, but they didn't see the down points. So when I started to sort of open up about it, it kind of was almost like a therapy. I felt better to just say what was happening so that I could get it out in the open. And it made me feel better. And then obviously breaking away
mm,
from the cycle of, constantly working for this same boss or, and being in that toxic environment really helped me reanalyze what I wanted, and I always knew that I was a creative at heart, so that's why I went back into that.
mm,
So yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just need to figure
mm.
out what is it that makes you happy? What is it that makes you tick? What is it that you can do as a pastime so that you can step away from the stresses of your environment, essentially?
I really appreciate you sharing that because I know that these burnout experiences are very personal stories, and it gets to a point where if you don't start sharing it, you really start suffering. And hearing that you've shared it with your parents, and that the friends don't really see from the outside world, uh, that's something that I think so many of us have actually come to the true reality of, because we can't really share it with everybody. And you start to feel like you're kind of putting a downer on people as well. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I thought about, that's not going well. And, you're at a party or you're at your friend's place. It's like, I just don't want to bring them down, but I also need someone to share it with. So I'm glad that you actually shared your story.
Yeah.
And as kind of a continuation of this, there's not just one time that it happens, is there? It's
No.
this, you mentioned before, this consistent progression. So with what you've been through, like, yes, you had your primary burnout there, and that's happened. There's a few other experiences that I know you've shared on your podcast, not the 9 to 5, which I'd love to share about in just a second. But there's an episode that you did in season 2 with Ellie Baldwinson where you
Mm.
talked about the modeling story and what
Yeah.
happened one day when you're out modeling. Can you
Mm.
share that with us?
Yeah. So when I was about, I think I was probably 14 at the time, I think, around 14. And I had competed in a like beauty contest and I won it. And people were saying, "Oh my God, you should do modeling, you should do modeling." And they were saying like you're the right height for it, you should do it. So I saw this post on Facebook for a fashion show that was taking place and they needed models. So I was like, oh okay, I'll apply. So I did. And it was this new designer and she had designed this new collection. And so anyway, we had to go and practice walking on a catwalk. And so we went, and I brought a banana with me and some snacks, because it would be a long day of repetitiveness and whatever, no breaks. I didn't actually understand how intense it would be or how in a way degrading it was because of the way that I was treated. So, there was lots of models there who's super slim, slimmer than me, really, really tall, beautiful. And I was walking down the catwalk and we had like a 5-minute break and I just took a banana out the bag to just eat it. And the designer was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm just having a banana. Is that okay? Like, can I?"
Mm,
And she was like, "No, that's gonna make you fat. Don't eat that." And I was like, because if it was any other, I
mm,
guess if it was many girls would take that psychologically and go, "Oh my God, now I need to lose weight. I'm fat. I'm not good enough. I don't look great. I'm not the
yeah.
perfect look," you know? And the fact that I was told that, it really played on my mind. I didn't expect it to, but it did for quite a
Mm,
while after. And you start to look at things in an obsessive way and you go, "Oh, I shouldn't really eat that then, or I shouldn't eat that." But the fact that she had a go at me over just having a banana, I think was insane. And if anyone's listening to this, don't take notice of people when they try and judge you or say things to you, because at the end of the day, you know yourself the most. You know what your body needs and what you need. So don't listen to those people. But yeah, it really played on my mind. I just was so shocked by it. And I was
And
14
at
as well.
14, yeah,
Yeah.
it's such an impressionable age.
Yeah.
Like the flow-on effects of what that could have can be, you know, disastrous for,
Yeah.
you know, later in life. There's a lot of things that happen at, you know, childhood and developmental ages from a psychological perspective. You know, I'm not going to go into all of that right now,
Yeah.
but it's just one of those things where, through my experience and from what you've painted a picture of here, is there is a lot of things that happen within the creative industries, whether it's
Mhm.
modeling, film, video production, you know, photography, you know, being my space, or you know, writing, creative writing, any creative freelance pursuit. There is this level of treatment for creatives, and you've painted kind of a perfect example of what not to be like and how
Yeah.
not to treat a creative. But to say that, I do want to put in there that there are great people to work with
Yeah.
that don't, you know, try and use you and abuse you for everything you've got, because some of the stuff that you've worked on is incredible. Like, it's phenomenal. Can you share a little bit about some of the kind of more recent production work you've done? Because there's some pretty extraordinary things like Billions in there.
Yeah. I worked on Billions. This I think it's season 5 now. And that was incredible. That was partly shot here in the UK. At the time, Damian Lewis lost his wife, so they moved the production here. And we were looking for this Axe's mansion, and we had gone through about 350 different mansions to try and
Oh,
replicate
wow.
that scale, because in the US they
Mm,
have such scale, such big places. We don't have that here. We're a bit more, conservative and smaller.
yeah.
So we went through 350 freaking locations, and none of them were good. And I was like, and we were looking for a wood paneled space. At the end of the day, the scene that we were trying to do was a Zoom call. So it absolutely killed us when we found the location just for a freaking Zoom call. But anyway,
Oh.
it was great. It was really fun, and Damian
Mm,
was lovely. Like, he's the nicest actor that I've ever worked with. He would always come onto set and go, "Hey Francesca, how are you? How are things?" I'd be like, "Oh, can I get you a tea or anything?" He's like, "No, no, no. Do you want a tea?" He was like that, and he's like an A-list actor. Um, and he found out that I really love acting, and I was an actor. And at the time, I was with an agent that wasn't really representing me well, and I was sort of doubting, my existence in the acting world. And this AD that I know that was working with him closely mentioned me to him. And he, at the end of the day, when he was going to his driver, he said to his driver, "No, no, no, wait here. I'd like to speak to Francesca," because I was at the base and he was at the base. And I was like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." But I was like trying
so
to stay
cool.
really cool. So I was like, I'm so chill. Like, this is just Damian Lewis. I'm just chill.
Don't
And
fangirl, don't fangirl,
don't
don't
fangirl.
fangirl.
I know. And I was like, "Oh my God, Homeland, Homeland, Homeland." Like, I was like, that's all I could think of because I remember him from that show. I love that show.
Mhm.
So anyway, he stopped the car and he came out, and he was like, "Hey, I heard that you're an actor, and you're interested in like diving more into that. Like, what's your experience? Blah blah blah. Have you got any headshots? Can I see?" At the time, we had to wear these lanyards that told us because it was still COVID time, that told us our who we were basically on set. And I had one of my professional headshots on it, obviously. And he
Yeah,
was
of
looking at it. He was
course.
like, "This is great. This obviously, hello." And he was like, "This is great. Your headshot's great." But when people tell you compliments, I always find it really hard to believe it, especially when it like comes from someone like him, sometimes you just don't know. I don't know. Maybe people would say the opposite and go, well, if it does come from him, then it obviously means something. But I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, and then he was like, yeah, send me your show reel. I'd love to have a look at it. I'd love to comment on it. He's like, Francesca, I didn't start my career until my like mid 30s. And he was like, and it was such a slog to get there. And I have friends as well who were in the same position and they gave up. And he said, don't be one of them. He's like, you have something, you have a presence, and you're going to do really well. But don't ever doubt yourself. Just keep going, keep going. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna cry. But I'm crying too much these days on the shoot. I'm not gonna cry. So yeah, and I explained to him about the agent. He's like, "Oh my God, I've gone through so many different agents." He's like, "You got to do what feels right for you. If you don't think the agent's repping you, then try and find another one, try and keep going. Um, Sometimes it's just a process of elimination, blah, blah, blah." He was saying the stuff that I guess already knew, but it was nice to hear it from him and that he had his own difficulties to get to where he got to. But when he landed that, Homeland, for example, that just made him huge. But before that, I think he was in
It
small
was
little
that career
features.
role, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That
it
that
was.
break into the industry role, and he
Yeah,
was fantastic in it. I love Homeland as well.
so good. And he talks to you,
Brilliant.
he dips in and out of the American English accent all the time, like the whole
Oh,
conversation. And I'm
really?
like, what? Um, so yeah, that was like one of my highlights, I would say, on that job. Um, what else? I've worked on a feature called The People We Hate at the Wedding. That was a fun job. That was 40 locations, 6 week shoot. It was intense. We were across the whole of London and outskirts. So yeah, really high intensity stuff. And then I've like dived into commercial world because I was like, why not? There's this whole thing in the film industry that if you're a feature film crew, you can't do TV, or if you're TV, you can't do commercial. So you can't cross flow or whatever the word is. But I wanted to do it all and try it all, and I managed to, and that was a big tick for me off my list to have done that.
Well, that's awesome because part of what happened when you originally started getting into the film industry was out of uni, there were a couple of internships that came into play
Mm.
for you. Tell us a bit more about the internship process, what you went through, like
Mhm.
how you actually found being an intern as part of companies and what it is you were doing.
It took me a while to actually land an internship because you come out of uni, you're like, yes, let's go, I'm ready, I'm gonna get hired for something. But in the real world, that doesn't happen, as we all know. I mean, it can, obviously, but for me, it took me probably about 6, 7, 8 months before I got somewhere. And I'd managed to, I was one of those absolute geeks at uni where I tried to do like everything outside of my course. I went into presenting, I had a radio show. Um, I acted in other people's films. Like I tried to do as many things as possible, just to enhance my CV and also because it was fun. So I thought, yeah, I've got the great skills, like I can do this. So I was just looking online basically for internships and different things within production. And I came across a website called My First Job in Film. And there was mixed reviews about the website. People weren't sure about it, but I was like, oh, do you know what? I might as well just try it for a month or whatever and see. And I saw this internship and I applied. It was for a production assistant role in a production company called St. Mark's Studios. And they were like a PR production company. So they basically did lots of commercials essentially for different brands. I was like, oh, that would be really cool. I actually forgot that I applied to it because you apply to so many things. And then I got a call to have an interview and I was like, oh my God, what? Like I couldn't believe it. But also I was so nervous because no one really likes an interview. It's like, what do you say? Da, 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 da. Anyway, so I had the interview and then within that week they offered me the role to do a 4 week placement with them. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so I basically dived straight in. I started to understand what production does from behind the scenes when you organize cast, you organize locations, you organize the contracts and the call sheets and all of that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I dove into. And I think my first job was for an EasyJet commercial, like my first ever job. And I was like, "This is so cool." Like, we were on a
What a great job
simulator
to start
plane.
on.
Amazing, and it was with, Katie Piper. She's a burn victim. She was a model, but now she was a burn victim, and so she was
Oh, right.
repping EasyJet on this new book that she published. So it was about her, and so they were like, "Yeah, like, you have to go to this airport, and you'll go into the simulator," and I was like, "What? What do you mean?" So we went into this indoor simulator that they recreated a whole, like, plane, and then we went on the actual plane on the runway, and it was, like, such an operation. I was like, "This is so cool." But I couldn't obviously, like, fangirl or anything, but I was like, "Oh my god, can't believe."
Like,
So
keep a
that
straight
was
face. Like, keep a
I was
straight
I
face.
know, like, "Stay cool. I know who this person is, but stay cool, stay cool." So, yeah, I was kind of, like, dealing with the logistical sides of, like, getting people to sign release forms for the essays for the supporting artists that were in the shot, and getting people food and drinks and whatever. So I kind of did that, and then I stayed with them, and then when I finished my placement, they then wanted to call me back for another 4 weeks, and I was like, "Wow, this is so cool." But from there, I met a
That's awesome.
producer. Yeah. And this producer then took me under his wing and got me onto more different, different types of commercials, stuff like that. And yeah, then the career sort of spiraled, and then I was trying to sort of test the waters with different departments, and I met a location manager um who I at the time didn't really think that I would go into locations, but I kind of started to understand that I wanted to do producing, and locations is very much like that. It's very similar in the sense of you
Mm.
are producing your location, you're doing all the contracts, you're doing the risk assessments, you're doing all of that stuff, but you're also negotiating deals and finding the locations with your team. So when that job finished, it was like a couple months or a month or so that I didn't have any jobs coming. But that's when I was like, oh my God, I'm freelance. And I just dropped him an email and I was like, "Hey, do you have anything going?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, actually I do." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Right place, right time." And then, yeah,
Yep.
the rest is history, really.
Everything seems to happen for a reason, and
Yeah.
obviously there was a reason that you were doing, the internship and everything that kind of flowed on with that. Through the internship and everything that you've done, one of the one of the things that I kind of really take from your story is the amount of experimentation that you did across different parts of being a creative before actually realizing, you'd become a freelancer. The process of experimentation. You've been an actor. There was drama school. You did radio. You did TV. You did um, uh, production assistant and the technical back things. Obviously, learning a lot from all of that. How valuable was that process of experimentation in shaping your journey to kind of get you to where you are now?
Mm. I always thought it's so important to have done so many different things, because when are you going to do it otherwise, you know? I saw uni as a great opportunity to dive in and find out exactly what I like and what I don't like. And I took advantage of all the extracurricular stuff that there was, which helped build me then, or build my CV, I would say, to then get me that opportunity at the studio. You just don't know where the wind will take you, essentially. But it's definitely shaped me, because it's got me to understand how to work with different types of people, different departments, how to adjust depending on project and scale. Like, I started off with working with smaller crews because I started in the commercial sector. And those crews can be maybe 30 people, they can be 60 people, but wouldn't be more than that. But then features go to 150, 200 people. So again, it's learning to adapt and deal and grow. And I definitely think those experiences from uni helped shape me now. Have a bit bigger appreciation for the people that work behind the scenes. It's not all what you see on the camera, but also the people behind there. So yeah, does that answer your
Yeah, there's
question? I
huge
don't know if
crews
I
and
went.
everything that sits behind the productions.
Yeah,
And
camera. Mhm.
one of the things that I know we've pretty much all faced is yes, there's a lot of things that we do get, and they make great stories. Yeah, parts of your story, and people like the Damian Lewis's that really encourage you in that journey. There's also the flip side of that, which is facing rejection, the no's, the amount of no's that quite often happen. I think all of us can probably relate to that. Tell us about some of your experiences with probably the no's that didn't really sit well with you. You know, the ones that you're kind of disappointed about, and a little bit of the process of what you do to manage rejection in that way.
Mm. I would say that it's testing. I mean, I'm going through that at the moment, actually, um, where you sort of apply for stuff and you don't hear back, or you are asked to do a tape for something and you don't hear back. And you put so much effort and time into, for example, learning those lines or applying, on that platform. You don't hear back. And there was an opportunity I applied for it was like a 3-month position with the British Film Institute, and it was like an events coordinator. Because for those who are filmmakers know, the industry is quiet at the moment. They're saying it won't really revive until 2025 just due to the strikes in America, so it's really hit us the last year and a half. So we're trying to figure out what else to do with our time. So I was like, "Oh, I saw this position." Loads of my friends actually sent it to me, and I was like, "Whoa, we're all on the same wavelength here. Clearly, they think I'm this organization guru. Love it." So I applied, and I was like, "Definitely going to get this job." Like, and I never ever say that because I don't. You don't want to be overconfident or anything. I was like, "Definitely going to get
Yeah,
this
it's
job."
setting a
Like.
very high expectation at that point.
It's like 100%, like, I can do events, that's what I do in locations, I can organize a team, I can delegate, I can create spreadsheets, I can, all of that, wicked, I can do that. Didn't get it. I didn't get an interview at all. And I was actually a bit sad about it. I wouldn't say like I, really, really wanted that job. It's not my calling. I wouldn't say it's my calling, but it would have been nice to have been called in to speak to someone in an interview. And that really hit me. I was like, wow, why is that? But then sometimes I think, and it's terrible, but people don't accept you if you're overqualified, which I think is ridiculous. Because it's like, well, you've
Yeah,
got the skills.
it's
I'm making
crazy,
your
isn't
life
it?
easier. So accept me. But no.
Mm.
And so that hit me. But I just thought, you know what? Obviously things happen for a reason and there's something better for me that's coming. And I just have to wait it out. I'm waiting for that reason, by the way, universe. Can you please send it my way? But, I do
Just, I'm happy I've put it out there, come
yeah,
in
no,
now.
I'm ready. Um, practicing patience is the key to everything. I'm saying this out loud to everyone and to myself because I forget that. Patience is so important because everyone wants everything now. Everyone wants to be at the top of their game right now, and it's a process, it's a journey, and not everyone's journey is streamlined. You do have the ups and downs and the peaks and troughs. That's just life. But being patient and knowing, okay, what's meant for me will be is really important to think about. Um,
Mm.
so that's what I try and say to myself when I do get rejected and say no. If people say no to me, I just go, okay, that's fine. I did my best. Maybe it just wasn't for me. Maybe something else is coming. And 5 times out of 10, it does. Something better does come along and I'm like, "Oh, right.
So
Okay.
that's what I was
That's what
waiting
it was."
for. That's the
So
thing that was holding this back.
and maybe the wait was like 3 months before that next job or whatever. But if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long if the job that you get is like for the rest of your life or whatever, it's a career changer. So but
Yeah,
it's so hard when you're in
sometimes
it
it's
to
that
go.
short-term pain.
Yeah, for long-term
Mm.
success, exactly. And it's so easy to just, like, get stuck in a rut, "Oh my god, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening." And loads of people in the film industry are saying, "Look, I might need to move, into a different job role because I can't wait out for the industry to come back." And it is, like, a real thing. But if you think about it, we're only young. I'm gonna be 28 soon in August, but,
Mhm.
if you look at this year and a half and how slow it's been, that's only a year and a half out of the rest of your life of something that you could get. That
Mm,
it's all about perspective. Perspective, perspective.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's what I would
certainly
say.
isn't. And there's something else that I want to explore here. And I feel like this is going to take us to another level because when that rejection level hits, yeah, or that rejection hits, you've got these kind of coping mechanisms that kick in, and what you can do to tell yourself different things and be patient. And sometimes it's not always that easy to do that, but there's always that little moment when that rejection first hits. And if we can use your British Film Institute position example here, when you didn't get the call back, or didn't even get approached for the interview, and you thought, okay, this has been lost, what was the story that cropped up for you in that moment that you were telling yourself?
Um, as in when I didn't hear back what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I mean,
that kind of internal self talk.
yeah. So I saw on the job listing, it told me when I should basically hear back by. And so I put it in my calendar and I was tracking the days and I was like, well, I've not heard back now. And if it was me, I would have told people by this point so that they can get ready for that point. And, I was like overthinking everything. And then it passed that date and I was like, oh, wow, like maybe I'm not good enough for it. Maybe, yeah, I'm just not qualified for that role. Maybe I just over-egged it. I don't know. That was my process at the start, and then I just thought, "Do you know what? Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. There'll be other jobs, there'll be other opportunities. Life
Mm,
throws things at you all the time, and it's up to you, to decide what opportunity you take." So a positive, clear mindset can always help as well, because I think once you know yourself and you feel grounded and confident in you and your capabilities, again, something that I'm continuously trying to work on, um, you don't let those things affect you. Don't let it affect you. So what? Doesn't matter. You might get a better role in that institute later on down the line and you go, actually, that was meant for me. So a
yeah,
positive mindset, I would say, is
yeah.
how it made me kind of analyze the situation after I had my moment of
Even if it is a struggle.
even if it is a struggle, yeah.
Sometimes it's tricky, especially if you are going through that kind of burnout, or high stress is often a very considerable factor, something that I think many creatives really understand the pain of
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. There's one thing that I did want to bring up because I want to end us on a positive note, and I'm really curious to hear your experience here. Is what was it like, and how did you get to meet David Beckham?
I met David Beckham, another pinch me moment. I met David Beckham on a commercial shoot when I was a production assistant, and it was for a commercial called the London and Macau. It was a new hotel that they were building here, and he was an ambassador for it. So he was in the shoot, and I was like, oh my god, like David Beckham is on the shoot, like another like pinch me moment. But I was so chill on the outside, people would be like, what a cool cucumber she is. Um, I before the shoot happened, you get like a rider sent to you of all the requirements that would need to be in that person's trailer when they're shooting. And that one of the weirdest ones was Joe Malone candles. Like he had to have 3
Okay.
types of Joe Malone candles, and I was like, "What? This is insane." But then, the chip I don't know if you have it in Australia, but they're the McCoy's crisps. They're the chip shop fish and chip McCoy's crisp.
No,
They're
we
like a salt
don't.
and vinegar. Well, apparently he, like, loves that, so I had to get those, and then Razzle crisps, they're like the bacon flavor. Again, I don't know if you
Okay.
have that. And
No,
those were
we don't.
his,
I
like,
have had them
require
before because growing up there, but we haven't got them here.
Ah, okay. Well, guys, you need to try it. It's so good. So he wanted as well, and then just some mints and sparkling San Pellegrino water. And I was like, "Whoa, this is wild. This is his rider. I can't believe this." Anyway, when I saw him on set, he says, again, another nice person, he just comes up to you, says, "Hello, how are you? How are things?" But he's not the type of person who is, too outwardly. He's, like, quite contained, does his job, very kind of sincere, um, but I would say shy as well for someone who's, like, in the limelight. But he was a nice person to get to know. He was really, really friendly, and we spent, what, 5 days on this shoot together. So I was like, "Yeah, he's my BFF for life now, obviously."
What a proud moment to call Bex your
But,
BFF.
"Hey, Bex, how are
Uh,
you? How's the crisps? Good?" And the candles.
that's awesome. Now, I do have to mention this because this is something really cool that you're doing in the creative space at the moment, and you're doing it with Kat or Catherine Siggers,
Yeah.
who will also be another interview in this series. But you're doing a podcast called "Not the 9 to 5 Podcast." So,
Mhm.
just to give us a bit of context, tell us how you actually met Kat because it wasn't all that long ago.
No. I met Kat about a year ago, like, around today, July time. We were in a play together, and it was Kat's first time after a while of not acting to get into something. And it was my first time to get into a play that had so many different characters that I had to play. I had 8 different characters that I was multi-rolling throughout the play.
Wow,
And,
I can
we
barely handle myself, let alone 8.
I mean, you can imagine my stress. I was like, imposter syndrome. I was like, "I can't breathe," like, it's terrible. But, it was a great play. It was all about the post office scandal that happened here in the UK, and, um we met, she was really shy, I was a bit more outgoing. I saw her try and test a monologue that she has in the opening scene, and I noticed she was struggling, like she wasn't really believing in herself or feeling like she was doing a good job. And I was just observing her because it's really nice to people watch, and I was like, "Hey, like, is it okay if I, like, intervene? Like, is it okay if I just give, like, a piece of advice?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 go, go, go." And I guess this was, like, the first time we actually spoke to each other, like, we knew each other. It was To be honest, it took, like, maybe 2 weeks before we actually, like, spoke to one another properly. Like, we were just a bit like,
Oh,
I don't
wow.
know, it took a little while. Like, in group settings, we were, like, obviously speaking, but, like, one on one, we didn't really have that chat yet. And then,
Yet. That's the key.
yeah,
That's the key word.
yeah. And then I just gave her some advice on the monologue. She's like, "Oh my god, that's so great! Like, let me try it again." And so she did it again. She's like, "Oh my god, I see what you mean there. That blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah." And then, like, through that, like, this blossoming friendship grew, and we then had this, like, weird, funny banter with each other. People were like, "Are you sisters? Like, what's going on with you? Like, have you known each other for, like, 100 years?" And I was like, "No." Like, so that was really, like, fun and enjoyable, and, we shared the highs and the lows together. She would, sometimes I would come off the wrong side of the stage and have to run all the way round, and she was there ready for my costume change to help me change to then get back on. And it was like, it was so nice because we were, like, supporting each other in this, and yeah, we really kind of got to know each other, but we did have this pact. She's like, "Francesca, whenever I do jobs, it's like heartbreak for me because I don't get to see those people again because they always say, 'Let's meet up,' and then we don't." And I was like, "That's terrible. Like, I don't want that to happen. I have the same experience." She's like, "What? Really?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Let's." She's like, "Please don't ever leave me." And I was like, "It's so dramatic." But I was like, "Yeah, I won't. Don't worry." She's gonna kill me for saying this, but it's fine. I'm gonna say it anyway. And then
It's all right. I'm going to make this
she
into a short as well, just so it's got extra publicity.
thanks so much. And yeah, we then stayed in touch. We met up for drinks, and then there was one day on the South Bank in London. We were going to go and see a play at the National Theatre, and she's like, "Hey, like, I've got this idea. I think we've got something here between us, and it would be really cool to share our experiences because we're both, multi-hyphenate freelancers, creatives." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, what is it?" Because I was thinking we should do something. I just didn't know what it was. And she had done podcasting before, and she's like, "Why don't we make a podcast?" She's like, "I don't know what about, but we should do a podcast." And I was like, "Wow, that sounds awesome. Like, let's do it." And this was September last year, and we launched in December. So within like that period of time, 3 months, we launched a podcast called Not the 9 to 5 Podcast, all about the freelance lifestyle, the ups, the downs, the struggles, the in-betweens of what it is that makes you a freelancer. So yeah, it's been really
Yeah,
good
and
so far.
it's an
We're
awesome series, and
thanks.
the thing that I find is it wouldn't be unrealistic if both of you had known each other for a very long time. There's definitely a banter and a chemistry there. Um, Whether
No, thanks.
it's a jab or a hug, either one, it
Yeah,
works well.
either one. Mainly jabs, but it's okay. You should hear our voice
Hey,
notes. Maybe we should
sometimes the
publicize
best
that.
friendships are jabs.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You just feel comfortable with one another, so you can just say what it is, isn't it? But yeah, I'm so glad that we started the podcast and we've had some amazing guests, including yourself, on the podcast to share their experiences with us. And that's what we are. We're a community hub to allow other freelancers to feel seen and heard because we felt like there really wasn't that kind of community here um, to do that. So it's nice that we've created that small community. And I hope it helps people.
Yeah, well, I've listened to a lot of episodes, and hence why I originally reached out to you a little while ago, and I really like just the whole concept of what you've brought together, and it comes across really well. So, for anyone actually watching this, I'm going to put a link to the podcast website down below, so you can go and check out the podcast because it is well worth a listen, and you start to feel like you're in a community. It's not just you facing the problems by yourself. So it's a really awesome place to be and just hang out and listen for a while. It's fantastic what you've created. So well done.
Oh, thanks so much. That's the power of like social media and podcasting is you get to connect with people all across the world. So when we heard from you, we were like, "What? Australia? What?" So I was like, "Oh my God, Kat, did you see the message?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my God." So obviously we don't just say "Oh my God" in every sentence, but you know what I mean? Like we were just a bit shell
Yeah,
shocked
yeah.
that you reached out to us and
It's
yeah,
like
it was
it reached
yeah.
that far and someone wants to be on there from Australia.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, it's cool, and thanks so much for connecting with us. It's you never know where things take you, so yeah.
I very much believe in the power of collaboration. Hence, where like this whole series, a lot of what is on the YouTube channel and what happens on the YouTube channel now is born of collaboration. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? If there's really cool people, let's connect and do something. So, hence where our conversations have come from, and with Kat as well, her experiences are going to be pretty amazing to share within this series too. So, I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
that.
amazing. Wicked.
Well, Francesca, it's been awesome to have this conversation with you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I appreciate so much that you're willing and open to be able to share your experiences because the people listening to this, I want you to know that you're not alone in this, that everybody goes through the burnout process. Not everybody goes through the burnout process, but if you are going through it, there is a way to move through it well and actually prevent it going forward without
Mm.
losing that creative spark, and your openness and honesty in this has been greatly appreciated.
Thanks so much. Thanks for allowing me to be open and creating a comfortable space to share.